So now let's talk about the pantry cleanse. When you're talking about getting rid of foods, I want you to go through, first thing, clean out your pantry. Why? Because I want you to make one decision, not 30. Sometimes people will say, well, I'm not gonna get rid of stuff because that's wasteful. Well, then that means you're planning on eating it at some time. And that means you're not fully committed to this, okay? Or they'll say, well, but other people in my family eat it. Okay, but if it's really that unhealthy, do you want your kids eating it? I'm just curious. So you gotta think about this. And if so, if the answer is yes, that's okay. Move it somewhere else that's not in your same cabinet. Don't share a cabinet with someone who's eating foods that you know are not serving you. That's what I usually recommend people do. Separate the cabinets. So go through and do a pantry cleanse. And I want you to get rid of what we just talked about. Sugar. Anything that contains sugar. You're gonna have to read labels because people will often tell my husband and I, but I eat really healthy. And we went through one woman's kitchen and we actually cleaned out her pantry. This is someone who was health conscious. We ended up getting rid of 80% of the food in her pantry. I'm not kidding, because she had things like ketchup that was filled with high fructose corn syrup. Almost all processed foods have sugar and high fructose corn syrup. She actually had Captain Crunch in there. On what planet is that healthy? I don't know. So any of those processed foods with sugar, high fructose corn syrup, grains, I want you to get rid of them. White rice, toss it. Brown rice, toss it. Okay, bread. Did you know wheat bread's higher on a glycemic index than table sugar? So you need to get rid of that as well. Get rid of things that contain soy and corn. So most processed foods contain soy and corn, but they're not a healthy form of soy and corn. And almost all processed foods contain them. Lunch meats that are not a high quality lunch meat are usually have nitrates in them, and they usually have sugar in them or some other chemical. So get rid of all of those things. Go through, there's a list, we're gonna put that list up for you. Go through it and get rid of all of the things on that list. Read your labels. You'll be shocked at what you've been eating. And then you will not be so surprised at why you've been feeling the way you feel. Those foods, and not just the foods, but the chemical additives to a lot of these things are just wreaking havoc on people's hormones. They're hormone and endocrine disruptors. And they can cause insulin resistance, obesity, diabetes, hypertension, so many problems. They're causing girls to go into puberty earlier and women to go into menopause earlier. So lots of issues going on here with our food supply. So pay attention. Get some great sweeteners like stevia and erythritol. Those are the two I recommend. I'll talk more about that in the sweetener section, but stevia and erythritol are gonna help you really get through. For mayonnaise, you can actually use either Vegenaise, which is a store-bought product, or you can just make your own. You can use some egg yolks and mix a little olive oil and sea salt in it, and it makes a really great mayonnaise. Make sure you get some organic, fresh fruit for your smoothies. And for people who live in really remote areas, I often get these questions. How am I gonna do this program when I can't get to a grocery store that even has these things? One woman wrote to me from Alaska, where it was like sub-zero in the wintertime, and she's, I can't even get this stuff. So this is when I would recommend frozen. Even though frozen may not be the best most of the time, believe it or not, sometimes it's better than quote unquote fresh, because sometimes by the time foods have gotten to grocery stores in certain areas, they're like 2 weeks from being picked from the farm. And so that's really not that healthy, whereas frozen is flash frozen. So there are times that I would recommend frozen fruits and vegetables. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Always ask yourself this question, compared to what? When people ask me, well, can I have this or can I have that? Compared to what? Is it good for you? Compared to what? Do the best you can with what you have. Even if you implement 75 to 80% of what I'm telling you, and you have to alter a little bit of this, it's gonna make a radical shift in your life. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you next week.